Across the Pond.
Good evening, welcome to another episode of Across the Pond. You're back here with me, UAP Lee. It's a quick turnaround. We've only just finished an episode with John Stewart, but we're back again the very next day, and we're recording with two gentlemen this evening that have embarked on an adventure, and it's led them down a number of varying paths, and they're here today to talk about it. And I'm not going to blow the lid off it. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. We've got Ed and Seth. You've been doing some interesting work with regards to the Gemini project, or the Gemini space missions, should I say. Gentlemen, please could you introduce yourselves, give us a little bit of background and how you fell into the UAP topic and where we are now and where we've been.
Absolutely.
I know that I'll jump in and ask you questions along the way, guys.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first. Ed's the real story. I'm just kind of the administrative assistant, or a co-investigator of the Gemini UFO. And what the Gemini UFO is a photo that Ed found in the back of an old NASA archive that we've been trying to validate for the past couple of years, just trying to investigate the photo, how it was taken, and the associated footage from the missions. So I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that story.
Great. Nice to meet you, UFO. I'm Ed Wilson, and I come from a different area than most of the podcast you will see. I am not a UFO enthusiast, or I wasn't. I'm a science enthusiast, but I've made my living and career as a rare book and document dealer. Basically, a rare book and document dealer is more than anything else a historian. I go to auctions all over, and at auctions, because I know history so well, I realize exactly what fundamental books, what fundamental documents, what signatures, which photos are of historic relevance, and consequently, that's how I'm able to make my living. It's a little bit of an esoteric field. You have to be a nerd, like I am, in order to profit at it, but it requires an extensive background in history. So I'm really an historian, and that's how I came into this. The way I came into it was back in March 23, an auction was advertised, and I realized that it was for potentially very valuable photographs. It was the Emily Ertl NASA Employee Space Auction. Emily Ertl is how it was advertised. Before I started the historical journey, I did not realize what a prominent role she played in the history of NASA rocketry. Now, there are a lot of things that we have done here that have to do with United States history, and the websites that we use here are all open to the public. All the information that are in these first two books, every single document, every single image is a NASA document, a NASA image. This is not any imagination at all. It's not any photos that come from someone in their backyard. It's not contemporary. It's from 1966.
Ed, why don't you tell us who Emily Ertl was?
Well, Emily Ertl, as it turns out, was an employee of NASA. In fact, she was the first female employee at NASA, Cape Canaveral. NASA was formed after the Russians sent the Sputnik up from the basic form of the Space Task Group that our government immediately implemented in order to combat the lead of the Russians in the space field.
And of course, one of the early missions there was the Gemini mission, which Scott Simpkinson, whose archive was passed on to Emily Ertl, who was his assistant. Scott Simpkinson ran point on the Gemini missions. Really, he was responsible for a lot of the engineering behind the missions themselves. Absolutely right.
One of the things you'll see if you look in the dedication of the book, in the first pages, this is the page. What you're looking at, he's got the image up there for you to see right now. But that's the actual image that was discovered in the back of 31 binders. But what happened is I ended up buying 31 binders of 564 earliest NASA photographs. Hence the title of the book, The Simpkinson NASA Archive UFO, with over 150 of the very earliest NASA photos, many once secret. This was the personal archive of Scott Simpkinson, who led the Space Task Group. The United States government, when they needed to catch up with the Russians, formed a Space Task Group. He was the engineering head from Lewis Airfield in Cleveland, Ohio, very near to where I live and where the auction was held. The 568 photos They came from his personal collection. People wonder, how come I've never seen this photo before? How come I've been studying UFOs my whole life? The reason is because Simpkinson, Simpkinson had this personal archive, and it was given upon his death in 1996 to his secretary and actually his girlfriend. There's references, there's documents in there. She's number 2 on the list of people contacted during the Apollo 13 crisis. The crisis memo where the Apollo 13's a mission to the moon blew up and they made the wonderful movie about it. He was the guy who called that. And I have the original document that came from his desk where it states this is Apollo 13 has been declared an emergency failure. So that's how high up he was. He formed the Space Task Group. He was the head engineer. The blockhouses in these photos. Part of the value of this book that you're looking at right here is the 150 photos, the earliest photos, many of them once secret. You've got full page color mostly, but some black and white depictions of spaceships that blew up. Of the original 17 Mercury missions, most people only know the 9 that were manned flights. Of those 17, 8 of them fully blew up right on the gantry or while lifting off into space. And these astronauts, these brave dudes, I tell you what, they were brave. They were right there at the blockhouse and got to watch those things explode that they were going to have to sit inside an oil drum and be shot up into space in. So the guys had a lot of courage. This was a very strange time. The photos are remarkable. You won't believe it. Here you see the advent of it. It's like the photo archive here is one of a kind. Number one, it is one of a kind because he is the guy who built the control room, who's sitting at the control room. He's the one who okayed the launch. He's the one who okayed all the designs for the spacecraft. He was responsible for all the testing. He's a key figure who, because he died in 1996, before they did the NASA interviews, they did hour and a half to 2 hour interviews with every one of the original founding members of NASA. However, they didn't start that until the last half of 96. He died in the first half of 96, and he left this archive that was his personal archive from Cape Canaveral office that he had. He had an office at McDonnell Douglas, and then he had an office at the Johnson Space Center and also at Houston. So the guy was the key figure. And here, just look at the back cover of this book. Do you see that photo right there? If you look at that, let's see if we can get it. What you're looking at there, that's the very first Mercury mission, and that is the Space Task Group, the foundation of NASA.
It was. Scott Simpkinson, he was the real deal. But what the most relevant Gemini mission for our purposes, for the purposes of our investigation, was, of course, the Gemini 11 mission. Because that was the one on board which we believe the UFO that we showed you, the photo of it, was taken. And
sorry, just for the viewers, just to help them along, the Gemini 11 mission, what year did that take place?
1966, primarily October 1966.
Okay,
we've got documents in here. We've researched the documents.
What we did, we went and found the most obvious kind of public sources of data for this mission. Those would be the public transcript, and then the technical transcript, and then the mission report itself. And there's some other variety of documents that we looked into as well, but one of the most sort of striking features of the investigation that we were able to dig up was the in the transcript between mission control and the pilots of the mission, we found various references of that the pilots made to unidentified kind of phenomena, just kind of comments of confusion regarding what was like flashing by their window. So we were a little confused. They were saying things like, "That's weird flash," and this is nothing conclusive in itself, but it got us thinking. And so what we went and did was we found what I'm going to bring up here. We went to the National Archives and we asked for something called the D15 footage, which is the footage from an experiment that they conducted on board the mission. And this experiment was to test a TV camera. In fact, it was the first TV camera in space, for what it's worth. And a lot of it is just these frames where it's flashing between the clock face and some variously visible features of the Earth. As we get a little further, you can make out every now and then a little bit of curvature. But this was never before seen. We acquired it from the National Archives. And so what we found in there, which was especially interesting, was And what Ed did was he dug through like the 16,000 frames of this video manually, and he looked for any anomalies within the footage itself. And what we found, which would seem to corroborate the validity of the Simpkinson lithograph itself, the very impressive flying saucer photo there, were a couple of frames, one of which I'm going to try and find just now for you. Here we go. Which display strings of lights that resemble remarkably closely the Simpkinson lithograph itself. And I'm still not entirely sure what to make of this, because there's a couple of other details that complicate things a little bit. But here, and if I could zoom in on it, I would, and perhaps I can. Here we go, look at this. So if I zoom in right over here, this is just in the middle of those 16,000 frames of the footage that I just showed you going by. String of lights right here. And this is hard for me to convince myself that this string of lights here is a lens artifact or an aberration or a speck of dust or what have you, because it has some curvature to it and there's a very distinct line.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, the obvious thing that people would suggest in this situation is some kind of reflectivity coming back from inside the cockpit. But as we know from especially NASA, straight lines. Everything's uniform in straight lines. That seems to be slightly erratic. So if that is a reflection, it's not a reflection of any man-made lights within that cockpit, is it? Because it's not in a straight line. It just wouldn't be something that NASA had put in there. So it doesn't really answer it.
That's one of the things. That's one of the things that was most rewarding about it. When I first brought the lithograph out and people were examining it for me and trying to help me in furthering the research as to where this came from, we knew nothing more, okay? I knew nothing more than this was in the back of the Gemini 11 binder. It's approximately 6 inches by 9 inches in diameter. It's a lithograph, okay? It's not a photograph. Nothing was known about it. I started from take over, Seth. Seth, show him this picture. Yeah.
Don't worry, there's no pressure. This is very much a relaxed environment. So, Seth, I've got to ask, these pictures or these photographs that you've managed to ascertain or get hold of over these years, are these being declassified? As in, do you think they were just overlooked or nobody looked close enough at the image to suggest? Because obviously, as we know from the three-letter agencies and the intelligence agencies, they make a point of covering these things up or suppressing this kind of information, especially images like this, or that could be ambiguous. They make a point of suppressing that stuff. So do you think that these images have just slipped the net? Or do you think they've released them on purpose? Or do you think it's just a complete coincidence or an accident?
Yeah, in this case in particular, it seems a lot like an accident. Because this photo had never been...
Wonderful. I'm sure you'll understand, because I bet this happens all the time in England, too. That was the local Seventh-day Adventist missionaries wanting to convert us. So,
how did it go?
Well, the Seventh-day Adventists, as far as I know, have some pretty abstract beliefs as far as when it comes to UFOs and strange items. So I just told them.
Well, I was just telling Lee here about what might have been covered up about the Gemini 11 mission. So one of the things we found was we investigated this.
Do you see the lights? That's the lights that you saw in a non-linear form, and that's the UFO showing a non-linear form. As I was saying, one of the original
Richard Underwood.
The Richard Underwood story it is wonderful but there's a lot of work yet to be done on this. There's a lot of work being done on it. You're going to know, be the first to know there in England, what steps have been taken now that will lead to the conclusion of this program. And that has to do with the CIA searches we have undergoing. But just going back to some of the information that you need to get and that people need to find out. When we talk about scouring the document, if you look at the covers of the documents, and they're in the book, and they give you all the information where you can actually get on the internet and download these actual reports that are in here. They were 12 years old. They were secret for 12 years. So from 1966 to 1978, all these documents, these voice transcripts, these technical debriefings with the strange anomalies being discussed, none of that was available for 12 years till 1978. And by that time, it was old hat. They've already canceled the lunar missions because things had just advanced so quickly that no one was interested in it.
Seth, do me a favour, just to help the viewers out, if you could just zoom in on that image and just explain very briefly what we're looking at. Again, just for the viewers' sake.
here's the UFO. Here's what we're looking at. It's really quite remarkable. It's
It really is quite distinct, isn't it?
yeah, isn't it? It's kind of hard to make it out like it's anything but a flying saucer. So, it could have been faked.
And
That's the
that's the surface of the moon? Or
No, that's the Earth.
This is the Earth.
that's the Earth. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so the allegation is that this was taken aboard Gemini 11. But this unclassified label is somewhat interesting because Richard Underwood, he headed up NASA photography at the time of the Gemini missions. And he had a background in clandestine operations, so to speak. He flew the B-2 bomb, not the B-2s.
He didn't fly. He was the photo analyst for the not the B-2
But
bomber, but for
flown
the
the U-2s.
U-2s. Yes, and I think it's such a humorous story. This comes directly. All these stories that you hear come directly from NASA files. These are not anything that we created. This is not a hearsay story that passed down. You can read this. You go to the JSC archive files. It's the 2-hour interviews with all the earliest NASA engineers. They wanted to get the final interview in '96 before they died, and the Underwood interview is just fantastic. He makes startling revelation. For one thing, one of the revelations that he makes, and if you read it in the NASA files, is that nobody has ever seen a NASA photo first edition. Neither you, neither me, neither Seth. No one out there has seen it. Right in his own. It's right in his interviews. The entire process. He set it up. He had been working with the CIA. Doing an exploratory mission down in Guatemala. And in Guatemala, as the mission was completed, he came flying in on one of the, not the U-2, of course, but one of the other B-29s that they use for photo reconnaissance work. And there, standing at the airport, was a beautiful young Guatemalan woman. The young, beautiful Guatemalan woman intrigued him. He fell in love with her. He was helpless, and he married her.
This isn't the
problem was, let me finish the story. No, listen to this. This is what happened. I want you guys to understand the seriousness and the documented seriousness of how dangerous this field is and why people who are whistleblowers really deserve our respect and attention. Yeah, sure. In the NASA archives, he tells you right there, I loved her. We got married. And the general who I was working for almost immediately pulled me aside and he told me, and quote, you can read this, I should have you shot right now as a traitor without a trial. You should not have married this foreigner. And he took him off those classified briefings, off the U-2s, and put him on the B-29. And he did the rest of his career with that guy to the point that he was deaf in one ear from doing those missions. These guys.
And this is the gentleman who originally worked on the B-17s, wasn't it? During the
yes,
war.
Yeah, and he's the one who set up the entire NASA photo system. As you read in the interview, he tells you how it happened. He had gone on to the University of Colorado, a mining school, to work with them on their photo reconnaissance work on mining resources. While he was there, because he had all that experience with those high altitude reconnaissance flights, one day he got a strange call, and the call was a guy with a German accent. And he asked me, he says, I understand you have experience in photography above a 50,000 foot or 38,000 foot altitude. And he says, yes, I do. And then the guy says, well, listen, what do you think you could do at 200,000 feet? And it was Werner von Braun. Werner von Braun found his resources, contacted him, and said, I would like you to come and speak with us. And he put him in charge of setting up the original NASA photo classification scheme, which from the very get-go, with Richard Underwood's help, was set up to not let you trace the actual images, where they came from, where they were. He knows every one of them, and he lists them, but the order is, it's a complicated system designed not to enlighten, but designed to confuse.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, what's interesting about Underwood and him having flown the U-2s is that for a long time the U-2 program itself was concealed from Congress, and there was some drama about it in the 60s and 70s when Congress was trying to uncover what had been going on with these spy planes, and they had actually been concealed by being kept unclassified. They had kept the program unclassified.
In the
paper,
United
but
States,
they
in the
can't
United
pass
States
over to
classification
Congress.
system, a secret and top secret, which is, I'm certainly sure that it's different from perhaps the British system. But here, in our form of democracy, we have problems with the Congress, which is like your House of Lords and the Commons and stuff like that, being able to access classified materials. So originally, and it's changed over the years of secrecy, ever going back to the 1800s in Lincoln, they had secret documents then too. But anything that was a military photo document, anything produced by the military in the U.S.'s early classification history had to be made available to Congress. And of course, that's basically why the Russians knew about the U-2 before the American public did. Or not the U-2, but knew about all these things. So in order to circumvent it, and it's what modern spycraft's about, if you guys ever get the opportunity to watch some of the congressional hearings going on and they talk about spycraft, that's exactly what they're talking about. They have new schemes of classifications now. They realized, and in the book you can find a link to Gordon Cooper in an interview where he explains how the U-2 missions were kept secret, and it'll take you right to the YouTube location, to the very second where he explains how, well, we couldn't allow Congress to give away our top secrets, so we no longer classified them, and they created something called the SBU, or sensitive but unclassified. Therefore, they have circumvented Congress, and that's what all this stinks about, because they've been circumventing Congress ever since. So, and again, though, but the other important thing is this. The other thing that he shows in his interview, like I said, you've never seen a NASA photograph, first edition, okay, or first draft. It doesn't exist. He explains exactly what he did. He developed every one of those early NASA mission photos himself. He didn't even use the equipment. He did it by hand in case, he said, it's possible for an equipment failure to happen, and before you can even get the equipment open to process that negative, you've lost it forever. He says, they asked why I didn't use it. I said, this stuff is too valuable to ever risk it that way. I'm going to do it by hand. And he did do it by hand. And then he explained how he took those negatives, and that was the original film. And the original film, from that, he made one master copy, a second generation negative. In other words, no one saw the original negative but him. And of course, he already knows they'll blow his brains out if he delays it. But that's right. This is in NASA script. He describes it. And then he explains from that, no one ever saw one of those, okay, until we made the third generation copy. And he says, in black and white, in the NASA document, in the interview, nobody has ever seen more than a third generation negative of any of the NASA photographs. How much more blockbuster do you want? How can you imagine? So we're doing all these interviews in Congress trying to find this information out, and it's only by going back to something that was secret and from way back, and reading the guy's deathbed interview that you find out no one's ever even seen it. And he says, and we kept those things in cold storage, and we have them today. And he also says, and no one is ever going to see them again. So everything that we're working with, when you're talking about reflectivity and things in the screen and stuff, that's all valid. That's all good scientific research. I can tell you all about the triple pane glass that they were taking photographs through, and how the triple pane glass in this time, they didn't even know how to make the windshields on. Nothing on these spacecraft was anything given. Every one of these flights was experimental. There were 12 experiments being conducted during the Gemini 11 mission that had to be performed and solved before they sent to the moon. And these 12 experiments, each one of them was totally unknown material. All of these experiments were vital, but those are some of the interesting things that come up just from him. So let me just go ahead and give you what we found basically from these documents that were once secret. And here's the other thing you need to understand too. The kids, I understand, that history is a boring thing, but it's vital. You look at the pictures in the book. They show the very first Mercury space capsule being loaded on the back of a tow truck. And the tow truck, it's sitting out there in the open with a piece of plastic wrapped around it. And the windshield on the tow truck is a split screen 2-pane glass. That's the first spaceship being towed on a split screen window. The reason it's a split screen window, kids, is we didn't know how to make a big piece of safety glass then. Our technology, there was no internet then. What you have in this book, you have 150 pages of newspaper articles that were clipped from NASA that describe each one of the missions, the amazing flights that go on. The reason that those newspaper articles are there is there was no internet, kids. There was no continental satellite images that could be ready. We were primitive back then. I was a young man during this time, and although I didn't know it, I was living in the dark ages back then. And things have changed so much, but you need to study history to realize what's going on. These documents that we saw, the mission report alone is, I believe it's like 345 pages, okay? The last 20 pages have a listing of every single office, officer, and branch that got a copy of the mission report. The total number of the 1 month mission report for the Gemini 11, the total number of pages is over 350,000 pages. What's that? That's a lot of material. And each one of those, they had the number, every single copy, who it went to. That's all in the back rear end. So you can see a list. There's 20 pages of companies, of officers' names, of civilian names, where you can research and find some of this hidden information, which we need to find, by the way, because now we're going back into a realm of secrecy. NASA was at one time tried to be presented as a public agency. But now with our current administration, I don't even know if you know, Seth, I don't know if you noticed, do you know now that NASA is no longer a public foundation? It is now, under declaration of the president, a secret spy agency.
Well, we've seen that with the 3i Atlas situation this month, haven't we? I think that's been laid bare for the world to see, blaming it on the shutdown. But I will take you back. Let's just step back in time a little bit, and maybe we'll sprinkle a little bit of speculation in this. But if we follow the timeline a little bit, so Roswell happens. A number of years later, I think it was 1954. Operation Paperclip came to an end. Project Blue Book launched in 59. And then in 63, you've got JFK's assassination. A lot of people speculate that that's because he was going to blow the whistle on the UAP thing. He got squashed. John D. Linden got put in as a proxy, a puppet master, basically for 5 years to do the bidding of the military establishment before the Gemini missions kicked off. And as we know, from then on in, essentially, the public or the private organisations, the government organisations went quiet. UAPs went underground. It was a mass denial, wasn't it, from pretty much any official capacity from there on forward. And all of this stuff that you found, the imagery and the archives that you've dug up from the Gemini missions, as I was talking to Seth when you got up to answer the door, it's sort of a happy accident that it's fallen into your laps. As Seth pointed out, this could very much have been an accidental release from NASA, and maybe they've been left with egg on the face in the fact that now there's two tenacious investigators breathing down their necks. But we've seen this before, haven't we? We've seen this before, and I'm going to bring up Jon Stewart. We're talking about military film. Jon Stewart is a guy I interviewed a couple of days ago, and one of the things, I mean, he's tenacious, very tenacious. He spent a long time digging into this thing, and he's adamant, and he's got me convinced that the tape's real. Now, it's 20 years being in the military. One of the things that he flagged up with me, and this is something that rang alarm bells, is the cheapness of the government. You know, everybody in civilian street seems to be a step ahead of the military with regards to the technology and stuff that we use. And one of the things that John mentioned was the 1997 tape. The video is made on 16mm film. And again, this is in the 90s. So going back to the late 80s, late 70s, a lot of the Gemini missions, again, was filmed on the 16mm film, isn't it? So although it's not quite a smoking gun, but it is the same material or same ingredients that the government has been known to use. And again, I've said to John, and I don't know if you guys have done this or looked into well, maybe not so much you, I think you maybe on a different avenue, but I said to John that it's worth looking into the military stocks, because the quartermasters for every military unit will have a list of inventory that they've sent to particular units and areas. And those aren't restricted, unless it's obviously a restricted item. But if you can catch on and find out how much roll of reel and shitty 16mm reel is being used and ordered from where to whom, there's an avenue in there, not by the guys who've got the top secret clearances, but the quartermasters, the people on the ground floor, who will know about the items that the people are ordering. Because bottom line is, it doesn't matter what your clearance is, you've still got to order equipment from the storeman. And that's from 20 years of military experience talking. So there's always a man on the shop floor. Have you guys looked into maybe looking for people on the shop floor who work in the stores areas of the smaller units where these centralised stores hubs are based?
You've come up to something that I was going to save for the end. This will be the thesis of the final book and the final report that's going to go to Congress, okay? We've located, let me explain to you what you've got in this series. We'll start with the first book. The first book, we had no information whatsoever at all. We found the 12-year-old secret documents, and we looked at the voice transcripts. I located 3 prominent descriptions of UFOs flying out the window. They're included the actual transcripts in the book. And what happened is, first, a mysterious object is sighted. And at that moment, both the astronauts witness it. 2, the craft undergoes a stack failure. Okay, so within 1 minute of them looking out the window and saying, "What is that? Did you see that go outside your window?" And he says, "Yes, what is that?" Within 1 minute, NASA calls them up and says, "Please check your 2C Start Charlie stack," which was a battery. I didn't know it initially. So there were a series of 6 batteries on the Gemini craft that were responsible for powering that. And when you talk about cameras, I've located 5 cameras. I've got a bunch of interesting things. You want to know the technology in this stuff? I will show you this in just a minute, but let's finish the story and get up to that point, because that's the point that's going to finalize this entire program that we've been working on. So the voice transmissions, say checkers 2C Charlie, that is the battery that they're working on at that moment. And just like it's called the UFO electromagnetic effect, tell me you haven't heard that a UFO flies overhead and the car battery dies, right? Is that about as common as it gets? I mean, everybody knows that, right? That's just a common electromagnetic response to a UFO. It just happens all the time. That's not news. But what's news is they saw a UFO out the window. They both saw it. They mentioned it. NASA called them up, said, check your stack 2C, Charlie. They check it. It's 0. The battery had died completely, was dead and gone. That's within 1 minute of seeing it. NASA tells them that. 2, after that, or 3, I should say, within 1 minute of them talking and saying, "Hey, it's 0. We've got 0 amps. We've got 0 voltage." Within 1 minute of that, so in those 3 minutes of that encounter documented in the voice transmissions go silent for 6 minutes. Richard Haynes, the founder of NARCAP, who worked for NASA at that time, was kind enough to write me about the book and how the archive is just fantastic and people will respect this for years to come. He said one of the things that I look for when we're trying to identify these incidents of UFO encounters in the missions is a period of unexplained silence. So for 6 minutes, they cut the voice transmissions out. Doesn't mean the voice transmissions ended. It means there's just 6 minutes where it's deleted from even the 12-year secret files. And then it comes back on, and as Seth so kind of pointed out, Seth points out in some of the literature that you will see when you visit Seth's website, the first thing they say is the radio back on? So they knew that it had been turned off. So you've got that happening on the very first instance. That's the first book. That was the exact start of the D-15 experiment, the film of which you've seen. So the first book documents through 5 eminent scientists. It's complete scientific archive in the back of each book. The reason they're included there, and they are not changed at all. They are put in the book in their entirety, unchanged, so that people can see how a scientific approach to this is the only way to go and to be factually accurate. I've always said, it's been my personal belief, people's lives are on the line. I don't want my son ending up in a war somewhere and having a military secret revealed and him getting killed. I'm not proposing that, but I am proposing that it's time that we moved on to some of these things that we know are real and were covered up and now are just perhaps fortifying a power play by the people who control all this information. You were wonderful talking about all the different programs that led up to that period after the 1947 Roswell experience. I couldn't leave the track of this without talking right now. If anyone out there has not read the Philip Corso book, the very first whistleblower from 1996, called The Day After Roswell, he is a documented, genuine presidential advisor. Philip Corso, in his book, just absolutely is astounding in what he saw.
Former general. I don't know if he was a presidential advisor.
Oh no, yeah, yes,
Seth,
he was a presidential
can you
advisor.
lean forward a little bit, Seth? If you
okay.
you're
Anyways, he talks about how the Gemini.
Corso also alleges in that book that the U2 program was used for UFO-related reconnaissance, which is interesting with respect to the Underwood situation.
Yes.
So that was the U2 program, as in the U2 reconnaissance plane. You're a little bit quiet there. I'm just reiterating that. You're saying that the U2 reconnaissance plane was utilised for UAP reconnaissance as well as.
That's what Philip Corso alleges in his book, The Day After Roswell. Yeah.
And he also says, and these are direct quotes, that everybody knew that the Gemini and Apollo missions were followed by UFOs. He was at the head of the, what did they call it? Not foreign intelligence, not alien intelligence, but foreign technology division. He, under the general who was a radical and head of the Army Technology Division, he was his chief lieutenant, was given a file cabinet full of parts from the Roswell incident, okay? And it was his job, and everybody needs to read what he did. He farmed out these parts as foreign technology, not as UFO technology, to all the guys who came up with all these wonderful inventions after they back engineered it. So he claims responsibility for fiber optics. He says it was his fiber optics from the crash that did it. He claims responsibility, most importantly, for microchips. Okay, and that's the one thing.
I've got a question for you, Ed.
Yes,
if you don't mind me interrupting. Do you?
No.
I mean, you're a man. You've already said it at the opening of the show. You said you're a man of science, and that's good because I like science. I like data, and I like evidence. I like a little bit of sprinkle of spirituality put in there as well because it can tell us what it means rather than what something is. I think it can give meaning to the definition. But one thing that you mentioned, you've mentioned technology just. As a man of science, do you lend any credence to this whole 1953 Eisenhower deal? Then suddenly we have these huge jump forwards in technology. 57 we got Sputnik. In the 60s we got a space program. Yet 15 years earlier we're still flying around with propellers. Do you lend any credence to this kind of deal as a man of science, or do you tend to just strictly deal with facts?
Well, I strictly deal with facts, but I strictly deal with scientific facts. You talk about Avi Loeb's Atlas 3I, the incursion going on there. I've written 12 scientific articles that I've used sources that can be found. Basically, the main source of technology, up to the minute technology, comes to me through the Simons Foundation, called Quantum Magazine. I read regularly every week whatever their most current articles are on physics, astrophysics, mathematics. These are things that I enjoy. And then by processing those articles, I'm able to get back to the original peer-reviewed science. Peer-reviewed science, I've written 12 articles. They can be found on Medium, which is the exact vehicle that Avi Loeb uses. I think I've got 4 or 5 of my articles and scientific papers in some of the comments sections of all of Avi Loeb's last 4 months of Atlas 3I. And again, people get carried away too much on it, and then, he's just trying to shine light on something that is an anomalous situation, and it is not over, okay?
Absolutely.
It is not over yet. I've written papers. I've tried to get people involved on the amateur astronomers. I've written papers on experiments that they can perform that will help add credence to all the different work that Avi Loeb is doing. And again, let's get back to one of the things I wanted to point out. You talk about the cameras and stuff, and you talk about the 16 millimeter cameras. There were so many cameras on there. There are cameras that were never mentioned too, and I've got this just from the recent, and I haven't had time to research it yet because I've been trying to be able to do these podcasts and get some of this information out before before I croak, because you talk about a spiritual thing. Well, quite seriously, we talk about the spiritual aspects of things. I think Self will back me up. The fact that I found and discovered and purchased and uncovered this mystery and worked 3 years solid without losing track of the importance of the information and that it has to be proved by science. There are very few people in the world with that capability, and for some reason, you talk about your spiritual mysteries. Why did it fall to me? Well, it did, and consequently, I'm having some great success. But back to the book and the series of books now. So the first book, people need to look at that. The references there. There's so much work you can do out there. You need to get this information that's in the book. Look up those sites. Look at the scientific reports by peer-reviewed sites. Okay.
Absolutely.
And
do you lend credence to the idea that our, like, say, 60s technology was directly kind of inspired or downstream of UAP retrievals?
See, like Ed, I like something that's proven, that has some proof behind it. What I do find, I mean, you probably found this yourself from dipping your toe in the UAP topic, is that as soon as you go down the rabbit hole, you learn all this various information, and your mind needs to become essentially a colander, so you can sift out the shit, mind my French. But there is a lot of misinformation. However, like a mosaic, the more pieces that you get, the bigger the picture gets and the more obvious the picture becomes. So right now, for me, I think the UAP topic as a whole, based on the research I've done and the people I've spoke to, I think it's probably around 70% clear. The remaining 30% is the corruption and the people pulling the strings, I think. But for the crux of the topic, I think it's very visible. I think we're just seeing pure denial by anybody in an official capacity. Until the 21st of November, when the Age of Disclosure comes out, and I think probably that'll shift the tide a little bit with mainstream acceptance when there's people like Marco Rubio talking about it. But do I think a deal was made and a hand was shaken between Alien and Eisenhower? I don't know. But I do find it curious that we did have incredibly huge leaps forward in technology in such a small time. But anybody that wants to say, well, we've done the industrial revolution up until, that's just normal. It isn't normal. It isn't normal at all to go from creating what essentially is a TV in its most basic format to putting people in space is not normal. And fibre optics in itself is like a magic trick compared to the World War II technology we only had 15, 20 years before. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. It's pretty remarkable. And I also think, Philip Corso in that book that Ed referenced, he alleges that the semiconductor itself was actually inspired by
the chip that he found.
Extraterrestrial technology.
It was in his drawer and he farmed it out. A lot of the controversy and denial that comes on, and of course it's just like what Avi Loeb's facing right now. It's obstructionism. It's against the spirit of Inquisition. Okay, and that's what Avi Loeb fights again, and that's what we've been fighting against here in our studies. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. But that happens.
It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, well, I haven't finished some of the important stuff I want. I want to get to the second book now. The second book now is when we discovered that during those three interfaces, where we've got the actual voice transcripts, you can hear them. So here's a copy. This is what you look for. Okay, you see that? That is the mission report. That's the actual document. You see how it was secret for 12 years? You can look at those right now. You can bring them up. It's 500 and some pages long. They made 500,000 copies of them to get it done, and they had to be read by all of the 200 recipients of those copies. Not only they had to be read, but the frenetic pace of this technology being advented during the Gemini missions was this. The Gemini mission only had 1 month between its completion and the final Gemini 12 mission. Within that 1 month, all 546,000 pages had to be produced, printed, dispersed, secretly to all the receivers, and then they had to be analyzed, and then they had to have the feedback before they launched the next mission. The frenetic pace of that in a time without the internet, without computers, without computers. This was all being done by hand. That's why you have all these interesting things such as lithographs being done. Color photography back then, kids, let me explain something to you. You may be able to get a nice picture with your phone now, but you may remember having the actual photograph that mom and dad did with their little brownie camera or whatever. Those were expensive in my day. It was 2 hours out of your working day to get an 8x10 photograph of your family back then. It had to be developed with developing tools, okay? We had chemicals. You had to have a guy who was a technologist called a photographer back then, worked in a dark room, used special photographic paper, rare stuff that was barely made and expensive. 2 hours out of your 48 week, that's 5% of your income just for a single 8x10 photo of mom. This is why lithographs were incorporated. Lithograph, of course, is just a cheap method of reproducing images, okay? That's the first book. The second book, we get into the D15 experiment. You've seen some of the photos that have been used to it. And then with a breakthrough that you find in the second book, as I studied and studied and studied, and I read and I looked at all these. And you have to go to Arizona State University. Just got to get this out. NASA no longer does. I did Freedom of Information Acts following Colonel Carl Nell's advice on how to track down some of the missing photos and missing information. As Colonel Nell said, originally some of the photos were kept secret by moving them from NASA archives into the Department of Energy due to the Atomic Secrets Act of 1954. 1954, they incorporated something in the United States called the Atomic Secrets Act. Anything having to do with atomic secrets, we didn't want the Russians to get, so no one was allowed to get it. It was all top secret, classified, and hidden away. Boom. So as Colonel Nell said, he said, hey, so that's the first place they moved it. And whether it actually dealt with atomic energy or not, which of course we know there's some strange energy sources for all these craft. That wasn't the important thing. It was a way of getting rid of this information out of the mainstream so it could not be taken and dispersed to both our enemies and our friends, who later on means us and the public knowing what's happened. You follow that. I've done those Freedom of Information Acts. They came back negative. The agencies change over time. All this stuff, there's a whole track of secrecy that goes way back to Tesla and his death and the CIA walking into his office and getting all the amazing stuff. When you talk about your spiritually strange stories, I mean, Tesla, of course, is a remarkable link in humanity. I don't know how to explain the guy. Some of the work I've been doing lately, I like loop quantum gravity seems to be a closer explanation of the real physics of the world. Cosmic background microwave radiation is hard to be explained, but it's static models. Our models are outdated. I was taught that Einstein was the give all of it, and that it was actually solved. Well, it's not. There's enigmas in that standard theory that we cannot solve unless we find the real format of what's going on in physics. Are you still there, young man?
It's gone.
Nothing.
It's still recording.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll continue to talk a little bit just for a second to go on from there. The important thing that I want to get across now is the book 2 does the one thing that, again, is miraculous to me. Searching all the Arizona State University photo archives, which they are now in charge of all NASA's photos. They have the highest resolution images. NASA no longer will respond to a Freedom of Information Act request. They have given all the information they say to Arizona State University, even though the evidence I have shows that the original negatives are still in Building 8 of the Johnson Space Center. Okay, and now the new information that I have will update even further where some of this information can be found. So I found in a series of photographs taken immediately after the release of the Agena capsule that was tethered to the Gemini 11 craft, performing what is known as the gravity experiment, artificial gravity experiment. They were hooked together by a tether. They started a slow rotation, and they induced an artificial gravity field, which was proven by the fact they released a pin in midair, and the pin went to the surface of the spacecraft. When that experiment was done, they were going to start the D-15 first footage camera in space, the first television camera in space experiment, and that's exactly when the voice transcripts said that they had seen the first UFO encounter. So I finally, the secrecy of the displays of the photographs and the sequences of the film set up by Richard Underwood so you can't decipher it. He knew exactly when everything was. If you go to the Arizona State University, you look at each one of the Gemini 11 Hasselblad photos or the Maurer photos or the 16 millimeter D15 photos, there are all kinds of cameras on there, and I've located a new secret camera that used infrared images, and it was the infrared images that nobody knew about, the infrared camera.
Right.
Yeah, I see him there. Yeah, you've been able to hear us.
I literally have no idea why that's just happened. It just threw me.
Oh, okay. Were you able to hear me speaking?
I didn't hear anything of what happened in the last.
Oh, was it recording?
No, I think
it's
it was
recording now.
Oh, it's recorded?
It said
It is now, but we'll have to go back over it again and splice it together. There was no explanation for that. I've literally got no idea why he'd done that.
No,
maybe we're talking about a sensitive topic.
Well, let's put it this way. Right now, I've got four Freedom of Information Act requests, and unfortunately, due to the government shutdown, they were made. All four of them were within the last 6 weeks due to the information that I've captured. One of them's to the CIA, one of them's to the National Photographic Center. So, yeah, there have been experiences I've already encountered with the sensitive nature of the topic and exactly the security of.
Lee, do you know Carl Jung?
The name rings a bell.
Yeah, he was a psychologist, and he kind of coined. You know about synchronicities that ever come up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he coined that term, and he actually worked closely with a guy named his first name blanking on Wolfgang Pauli. Do you know? Have you ever heard of that?
Oh,
name?
yeah, the Pauli principle, right?
Pauli exclusion.
Yeah.
Well, Pauli.
Go on, explain it, Seth.
Pauli was known, actually, funny enough, for when he'd walk into a room. He was a theoretical physicist mostly. He was a physicist like anyone else, but he'd walk into a room with his more experimentally oriented buddies, and there's something known as the Pauli effect, where he'd walk into a room and the machines would start going haywire, or something would blow up. He'd know. He had a sense for it. Apparently, he'd know when it was happening from miles away, and just shit would start malfunctioning.
That's just the subject. It just seems to put gremlins in the machines, doesn't it? Or somebody's controlling it.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of interest in it. In fact, not my first cousin, but I have a cousin that has written extensively on it. In fact, she taught there. I think it was at Oxford University as well as Harvard University. She was a professor of psychology. Dr. Diane Powell, who, of course, my friend Seth here, I put him in contact with her when she was looking for an associate to work with her. But she and I have experienced synchronicities over the years. Amongst some of the artifacts that I've recovered, I recovered an artifact from the Dalai Lama, the current Dalai Lama, when he was rescued by the CIA in, I think, 1951. When he was rescued, the CIA brought him back, and they also brought back a Swedish vase from the 1895 World Fair. And the guy, yada yada, short thing made, long story made short, I obtained that in an auction and found out that it was purported to belong to the Dalai Lama. In the research that I did, I found the guy who was a Russian spy who took it from his uncle in Sweden and traveled all the way down through China, pretending to be on a scientific expedition, and all the while exploiting that information to make maps and defensive strategy information. And when he got down to Tibet, and of course they immediately stoned him as he approached them because they thought he had the evil eye. But he presented that vase to the Dalai Lama, and that was when, not that the previous Dalai Lama. No, I gave it to Diane Powell, Dr. Diane Powell. The reason we got back in contact and had synchronicities was she had gone to meet the Dalai Lama and him extensively and done some tours over there in Tibet. And I knew that having read one of her books and seen her website. So I wrote her, I said, Diane, you're not going to believe this. I've got the vase that was given to the previous Dalai Lama back in 1910, and I've documented where it comes from, and it's real. And I see you're working with the current Dalai Lama, and I can tell that this was removed from the palace at the time of his rescue. And I said I would like to give it back to him. And she says, well, that's fantastic. And she looked in the story and says, that's amazing. It is something that was taken from him. And she made arrangements to, just before COVID, I sent it back. She sent it back to him. And he now has possession of that vase. But she made arrangements where we would both go to Tibet again. Or not Tibet, he resides in India. And we would receive his blessing. But then COVID hit. But Dr. Powell should be well known for synchronicities.
Absolutely, Dr. Powell's work is remarkable. She has a good appearance. She kind of appears on.
Oh yeah.
I think you had.
I'd love to get the Dalai Lama's opinion on UAPs if you do go back over there.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to share something with us.
Yeah. The way that I was going to do this was I was just going to obviously listen to what you guys and would discuss and talk about the topic that we brought you on for. I wanted to pepper some questions at you, but then I was going to, at the end, sort of bring you in on something and show you something that I think you'll find interesting. So how do you want to do it? Do you want to?
I want to stop first because I don't want, because this is going to tell it up. I want you to look at that. Okay. This is by Mark Braven right here. This is what was discovered by me in the second book, and I never did it. This is the breakthrough that has brought that lithograph
this is an
to.
Photo. It's a different camera. It's the Hasselblad camera that took the photograph that's in the foreground there, and it's an exact cloud pattern match to the Simpkinson lithograph to the UFO photo itself. However, where the UFO would appear on that Hasselblad camera, there is no UFO. So our conclusion naturally is that either the UFO was superimposed, faked onto this actual Hasselblad photo, and then how do you explain the D15 stuff in the transcripts, or it was removed from the real photo for this Hasselblad frame. And we don't really know what the case is.
Yeah, and the interesting
photos
is
purchased.
there's no metadata on it.
This seems like a source of truth where the UFO isn't there, and it seems like the same photo, but that doesn't entirely negate some of the weirdness around the mission in the case.
The important thing is the cloud match verifies the fact. Then what you see, there are three things here. Let's see if I can do this weatherman trick. This right here, that frame right there is the very first image in the Gemini 11 mission report. There are probably a total of 35 different images in the actual report. But the very first one at the beginning of the thing, this is the image. This is when the tether unhooks the gravity experiment. That's exactly the instant that was led up to the UFO being noticed out the window. And that's the only portion that is in the mission report. Okay? Now, the big image that is inside is S66-54585. That's one of a series of 5 photos taken automatically by the camera when they released the tether and gravity experiment. And they were pre-planned to be taken in that order. One of them is missing, okay, and it's missing. And they claim when you go to Arizona State University, you can bring these pictures up and see them. This picture is in the Gemini mission report. This picture is 54585. It's in Arizona State University, and of course, what you see over there is the actual NASA archive. And what you need to do is you need to notice that, that the cloud pattern matches exactly. Down below the UFO in the lithograph is that triangulated cloud pattern, and that's the exact same one that's in the actual photo. Travis Taylor, I don't know if you know about him. He's has a popular show over here called Skinwalker Ranch. It's all about UFOs and the phenomena. He did a 20-page report that you need to read. It's also in the book. He's one of the scientists who did the analyst of it, and he analyzed that background. He says that's actual orbital debris in the back of the lithograph. He identified that in the report. I made the original poster once I discovered that this was the cloud pattern. I don't know. It's just through diligence and dumb luck and perhaps synchronicity that I was able to identify by magnifying the actual portion of that S654585 and the unusual tripartite formation of the cloud structure, that was actually the same photograph. So that's what came up in the second book. It's absolute match. You cannot deny it. It is image. It is the exact image in all three of those pictures.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Lee, did you have some questions that you wanted to pepper us with?
No, I don't.
What I wanted to do
first, because I'm going to answer one of his earlier questions right here. You wanted to know about the science and how we do some of the science and what's coming up now. So this is going to be the first release of this information here. I'm just going to give you a rough update of what the current situation is.
Please do.
After these first two bits, you wanted to know about your military guy and how your military guy searches the archives. Here in the United States, the Central Intelligence Agency has had to disperse and release information, okay? These are the links that you can get to them. It's called the CIA Reading Room. I'm devoting much of my time every day now to the CIA Reading Room, where all the Freedom of Information Act released and cleared documents of all of the CIA's history have been stored for public dispersal. These links right here document the fact that NASA and the Gemini mission were interlinked. It's the creation of 1954 of the National Photographic Intelligence Center, and it was created in 54. These are the NASA links that tell the whole story and the history of that building. And in that building, it describes all the lithograph machines that were taken, and it describes exactly the procedure where these, what the Simpkinson lithograph turns out, I believe, is you can only describe it as a sanitized derivative. In other words, all these links, these are links that will take you to the Cuban Missile Crisis photos. Those photos had vital information that they did not want anyone to know exactly how detailed their photos were, but they had to provide top clearance individuals with something they can see that will explain the situation for them, but it's sanitized so you cannot get military information out of it. And that's when the entire National Photographic Service was created in 1954 and is still available today in the old Stewart building. And you were talking about the list of the equipment. You want to know what equipment they had? Your friend is talking about all the trails. That's why he'll be pleased to know I've got 4 Freedom of Information Acts that locate, and I have the locations here, or locations here of the exact links that will take you to the declassified CIA reports telling you exactly what they ordered. And it's a massive search effort, and I'm not done with it yet. But he'll be pleased to know that, yes, I've got the model number of the lithograph, both the Harris lithograph and the Heidelberg lithographs that were used to make these products. Yeah, he's right. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm getting these links and tying them in. And I've found the links that say that basically, yes, you can read the actual CIA reports where they say, we don't want the people to know that we are in charge of the photographs.
Well, there we go, another cover-up. Would you believe it?
Well, but the cover-ups I'm unfurling now, and I don't know who your friend is, but tell him he's absolutely right, and that I have started the link process. I've got the Freedom of Information Act in process as soon as our government decides that we're going to allow people to get on a plane again. He's right. And that's what I
don't think there's any better time then, now that we've gotten to that. I think I'll unveil what I've got for you. So let's screen share here. So first of all, what I will do is I'll set the scene on my background. So cool. 20 years in the military, I joined in 2006. I'm a communications specialist by trade, vetted to a decent standard. Been to Afghanistan twice. I left very recently, and since then I accidentally fell down this rabbit hole because of a knee injury, and that was it. I've sort of tumbled down face first since, and I'm never coming back out now. Once the cat's out the bag, unfortunately, that's it. But one of the benefits of being sort of in the career that I have, I've been on TV, I've sang on Britain's Got Talent, I've obviously been in the military 20 years, rubbed shoulders with generals and privates alike on various social occasions, just as a result of my career. Well, one of the byproducts of that is meeting interesting people, and a mate of mine, or he's now a friend, he showed me something, or he brought me in on a whistleblower. And this is the story. So he's already an influential chap anyway with regards to this topic. He's an investigator, a researcher, a ufologist, if you want to call it that. And he was somebody reached out to him who was living in Vegas, in the Nevada desert. And this chap was claiming that his father was an ex-three-letter agency operator, a worker who sadly died. But what he had left is this box in the attic. And as he's gone through it, this son of his, he's realised what he's sort of got in his hand without knowing what it is, if that makes sense. He's just found a load of stuff. And he's reached out to my friend, and my friend obviously knows a lot about this topic, and he's looked into it. And what he's got is nothing short of, well, it's disclosure essentially, but in the right hands. So what I'm going to show you now is a video of it's from the Gemini missions, and it's distinct. And what you think you've got, I don't know whether you've seen it. I doubt you have. This is an exclusive. It's never been played on a podcast before. So I'm wheeling it out to you now. What I've got is the video. I have the still. I have a couple of still images captured for you. And I also have a document as well on the Gemini missions. So let's bring this up and let's see if we can show you. Here we go. Sure.
What a coincidence.
Interesting.
Yeah, crazy, right? Here we go then. So Gemini.
Synchronicities, huh?
Can you see the screen, guys?
Let's see. I'm seeing a black screen.
It's black so far.
Okay. I'm just playing around. This is live TV.
You go ahead and work on it, and we'll tell you when we see it. But this is fascinating. I'm so interested in seeing what you have here. Seth himself, I think, took a couple months off last year to go to Utah to visit and do some own UFO recording on his own. So Seth has been investigating this field quite well. I'm glad you guys get a chance to hook up today. Of course, I'm available anytime you want. But I'm an old man, and you can't shut me up. So you'll probably want someone more like Seth. There, when we started to get a little bit of an image.
Right, so...
But, yeah, this will be very, very interesting.
How was that?
Well, the clock's running on it.
It's loading. It appears to be black.
And the loading clock was up.
I will get this up, and don't worry, we can edit this out, so there's no rush.
Oh, okay, good. And
we can speed the process up and skip straight to the end.
Well, it's going to be... By the way, I did have the chance to meet Nick Pope when you talk about famous military people. And, of course, Nick is aware of my investigation. He's been very helpful. I think he's in Las Vegas. Is anywhere... I forget where. Yeah, I think he's in Las Vegas now. Or, I mean, his residence.
Right, why is this not working?
Are you perhaps sharing a window or a screen?
I am sharing.
It says screen here.
So sharing the screen.
Yeah, that's what it
Try
says.
that one.
Clock's running. Quit down.
Still nothing.
Still nothing.
I don't understand. I'm doing exactly what I did yesterday, and it worked just fine.
Seth does this for a living. He explained it to me yesterday.
It's
We
all
spent
tech is a mess.
2 hours doing this.
You know, I can tell you probably why it's happening. It's because everyone's just fucking vibe coding with AI. Excuse my friend. Everyone's just software is becoming a buggy mess because everyone's just coding with AI.
Cool. He does this for a living. You couldn't pay me to mess with a computer.
You got to pay me a lot.
Yeah, I intend to.
Not you. Right?
Still
Right now,
nothing.
still nothing.
No, unfortunately not. I do wonder, and we would have to splice it, but if recording or if restarting the studio would make a difference.
Maybe, but I'm recording. So.
The power
Do you
is
want to
that.
take the chance?
Well, I can't wait to see it and comment on it and see if I can.
Well, it might be. It might be tomorrow if it carries on like this.
That's it.
Choose the screen
I'm
to share.
available anytime, especially
Well,
when
if you'd like to, we can try restarting the studio. It might clear whatever cache is causing this issue.
Yeah, go on then. Let's do that.
Yeah, okay. Do I need to save a recording or anything on my end?
Just don't close the app. You can log off and log back on. That's fine, but just don't close the app.
Okay. I'm going to leave. Well, why don't you... Tell you what. Actually, before we go nuking the studio, why don't you try leaving, Lee, and then joining back, and then perhaps that'll clear something on your end.
Good idea. I'll do that now.
Cool. Well, this is intriguing. That was friggin' A. Can't wait to see what he has.
I'm curious.
I can't wait to see what he has.
And it's exclusive.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back on. Let's try again. Please work.
Oh, look at that.
There we go.
Look at that.
There we go.
That's all software. That's what I get paid to do.
So first things first, guys. Let's go with the video. This is the video. Now, watch carefully.
Good.
Oh, hey, I've pressed the wrong one. Sausage fingers.
What is this? What am I looking at?
That's the lunar module above the surface of the moon.
Okay. You said this is for which Gemini mission?
I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Looks like 11.
No, that's the lunar module.
Not 11. Hello?
Apollo 11.
Did you see that?
No, back it up again.
I think there might have been a little bit of lag. My recording is frozen.
Okay, watch. Are you watching? Is it going?
It's not.
No.
I'm seeing it's frozen at the moment.
So you guys not seeing the video?
We're seeing the LEM module just frozen in space.
All right.
There's a bit of a lens flare if this red thing is what you're...
Yeah, up in the right corner. There we go.
Let me cancel this. Okay, we'll come back. We'll try again.
I'll watch it this time and be quiet now.
Is the screen on?
Downloading?
It is... not. No.
Black again.
I'm going to try...
Mighty.
turning off my camera here. If that improves the bandwidth, perhaps. I don't know.
This is ridiculous.
There.
Yeah, I see the screen again.
Boom, I see it. Some ominous colors up in the upper right of the screen.
Okay, you can see this now. You see the screen.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is... I can see your mouse moving around. Let's see it one more time.
All right, let's... How do I make this... Oh, Jesus. I just want to make the screen full size. How do I do that?
Well, I've got it full size on I can see it. It's quite adequate, and we don't need much longer or larger.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Here we go.
Okay, I can see it spinning there. All right, we're going up. Oh, okay, I'm seeing more than I saw before. Look at that. What the hell? That's the Earth.
Did you see?
Yeah, but I'm not sure what that was. I don't know if that was the Earth or not, Seth.
So that's the moon.
Okay, you got the moon. I see
that's what we're talking about. Okay.
That's not the Earth, is it?
And
that's not the Earth.
No.
That's the dark side of the moon. Right? On the other side. So we'll play that through again. What do you think?
Interesting. It starts off, I can tell you this, the original one is a land-based camera or a moon-based camera capturing the LEM vehicle lifting off from the surface of the Earth, okay?
So which mission is this from, Lee?
Whoa, wait a minute. Back it up a little bit there. What was that anomalous flash that I saw? Can you back it up? It was only for a second, Seth. Watch this. Okay, back up just a little more there. Okay, if you look to the left of that item, which could quite possibly be, this would be out the window of the LEM vehicle, and what you have to remember is that it's doing a rendezvous with the command module. That could quite possibly be the command module with the light reflecting up, showing it as a semicircle of light, and with the top half of the command module, which has the, you can see the in the center of the command module, it looks like a crater. There's a full circle in the center. That would be the docking mechanism to which the LEM vehicle docks, okay? But because of the lighting, you can see the full circle there, but you don't see the top half of the Columbia space capsule. So
so let's carry on then. Watch to the end, because it comes back. It pans back to us. What you can see, this thing looks like it goes behind the moon. Okay, so here we go. We're going to pan back now.
Okay.
And there you go.
Okay, coming back.
But that is just a little flicker at the end.
Interesting. Can you play the last couple
There it
seconds?
is, right? That's what you're talking about?
Let's see. Oh, it just goes away. Okay, it goes off the left side of the...
Okay. One thing that I'll point out, stop right there. If you notice that the lit side of the moon is reflecting light upward, the light from the lit side of the moon is reflecting off the bottom of the object, okay? Again, I'm thinking this is probably the capsule, the Apollo capsule itself, which we recognize the circular thing. And as it passes into the dark side of the moon, it's losing the reflection from the surface of the moon. The lit surface of the moon is still reflecting off the bottom of the capsule. Okay.
So you think it's just a capsule?
I think it's the command module, the Apollo command module, and what you're seeing is it's the reason it's going to disappear here is the light reflecting from the bright side of the moon reflects up onto the capsule that's being rendezvoused with, and as the capsule There, and see, and so as the capsule gets closer into the light side, you can see the image gets brighter. The reflection brightens on the bottom side, which is a semicircle. But as that capsule moves in, as the capsule is moving out of the light side into the dark side, there's no longer light reflecting up onto the capsule. In other words, it's moving onto the dark side. And so without the light reflecting off the dark side, then it disappears.
Right, so let's drop that down and let's continue this. So from that camera, we've got this still there. So,
fascinating. There are reports of the dark side of the moon anomalies being encountered, and there are some reports of missing voice transcripts about when they returned to the dark side from the dark side of the moon, of things transpiring there. But yes, I can. That's definitely a lunar limb module being filmed initially from the surface as it leaves the surface of the moon to re-rendezvous with the capsule for the return voyage. That's what you have, and it shows it.
I'm gonna need to get out of here in like 15.
Understood.
Ever happened, and it's driving me mental.
Do you see him twice on your screen, Aaron?
Yes, I see. I've got you twice on the screen here. Yeah, it's so funny. The first time it's ever.
Sorry, I'm up on the screen twice.
I'm just laughing at that. It's just so common. Like, this is the first time it's ever happened. We have a TV show here.
Ridiculous.
The TV show Secret of Skinwalker Ranch with Travis Taylor. Every one of the technological crews that he have in there to record the UFOs and the UAPs that they have flying around, and he's documented so well right on TV. They're always saying, "This is the first time this has ever happened to me." And it's just a trademark thing. So, yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's a black screen yet again, unfortunately. I hate to say it.
It is.
Disastrous.
Here we go again. Come on, baby. You can do it. No,
what a shame.
There's more footage to view, right?
There's images.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Yeah, and that's great.
And it's still black?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the Greys are transmitting signals to bug our connection.
Quite possibly. I take it was still black there, is it?
Still black, yes.
I give up. I really do. I've no idea. I've just had enough now. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm losing my way because I'm getting that angry with technology.
Same thing with me yesterday. You should have heard me cussing yesterday. Seth, we're trying to get my computer up to
troubleshoot his computer over the phone, and man.
We spent 2 hours on the phone, and it got to the point where he says, "Ed, you're going to melt the phone with your language." So he says, "I will be there tomorrow." And I said, "Thank you."
It's just ridiculous. I say it worked fine yesterday, just fine.
And to think how much they charge us for all this technology.
Yeah, exactly. We are paying for this as well. This is absolutely ridiculous.
What other product could they sell with that? What other product can they just sell and have it not work half the time and everyone just accepts it? The computers are the only thing. There he goes. No more host.
Oh, we lost him.
I've got the full recording. Hopefully, I can get it over to him.
Yes, exactly. But you need to make sure you need to make sure you
leave and then join again.
Yeah, you need to make sure you save everything that we have here.
Yeah.
Eventually, we will make it work. Actual recording is higher quality. That's interesting.
Lee, are you speaking? Oh, nobody's gone.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I'm glad I got to see what I got to see. I recognize that. I recognize there are also reports of anomalies on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah, I've heard this too.
Yeah, right, from the command. There he is.
Attempt at this screen share. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to share the videos with you the pictures with you off screen, off the recording. Any joy?
No, died again.
No, only misery and dismay.
Lovely. Great news. Okay, well, we'll leave that there then. But basically, what I've got is I've got a document. So this whistleblower sent over quite a lot of stuff in this box.
Excellent.
Right, let me just kill that. So he sent over this box, and there was a lot of stuff in there. There was items that he didn't know anything about, and there were some items that he knew a little bit about. And then one of the things that he sent over that he didn't know anything about was this dog whistle, that apparently this thing that they used to summon craft. And he's got this dog whistle. My friend has got it in his possession. He's not used it yet, I don't think. But he's got it anyway. And he's also got a supporting document, apparently it's quite thick, about these Gemini missions. Now, this stuff was given to him, his father, by accident. It's it's not declassified, if that makes sense. This is very much an accident, a big mess up, a big error, basically. And I say he's got this box of supporting evidence as well. So what I want to do, and what I will do off air, is connect you guys, because it sounds like these are linked, obviously. It's part of the Gemini missions. Maybe a different launch, but certainly part of the Gemini missions. And if there is connections here, and I know that my friend has spoke to Stephen Greer and has had these kind of images and stills assessed and legitimised as not doctored, they are legit. So it's something that maybe you guys can come together and collaborate on, and maybe even John Stewart.
I can't wait to see it. One quick question though, because so that I can concentrate a little bit on some of the knowledge I already have. What did you know the city that the whistleblower is from? Is it Las Vegas? Is it?
I don't know the city, but it's in Nevada. He lives in the desert, around the area of Las Vegas.
Okay.
He's had his dad. I think his dad worked at Wright Pat.
Out west seems to be.
Well, that's where they sent the Roswell craft according to everybody. And of course, Pat is so close to us and so close to Simpkinson's home. He was working up there at Lewis Airfield, which at that time would have been a 3-hour drive to Wright Pat. In 1947, Simpkinson was working with him since 1943. He was working on the secret German stuff back then too. Already had his classification. Quite a great link. I know what was it I was trying to recall. Yeah, some of the people. There are family members of the astronauts of the Gemini mission. Okay, that I know have ended up with boxes of their father astronauts data, images, reports. So I know and have not been in direct contact with one, but a reporter that I've worked with, she has been in contact with them and has made and was looking through and making arrangements to get with them. So I do know that there are boxes of the astronauts died. Some of the ones, die in strange circumstances. They die in, well, maybe not strange, motorcycle crashes, things like this. Of course, they're test pilots and daredevils, so that might not be too unusual. But they also happen to be the ones that have undergone these visual experiences, and then they die at a young age before they disclose anything. Like my archive, it comes from a basement where it has been since 2006. Okay. And before that, it was 10 years in Emily Ertl's apartment and left to her only surviving relative. So these things do end up buried, okay? And they're buried from very important people, from astronauts. I wouldn't be surprised if your friend turns out to be the survivor of one of the surviving astronauts who had access and did the technical debriefings. And a lot of these technical debriefings, like the ones in my book, in the technical debriefing for the D-15 experiment, he literally says, well, the experiment went so well, the television camera worked so beautifully that I know I was supposed to take a picture every 20 minutes so that we could test the tracking ability of this thing so that when we come to Soviet targets, we can definitely make sure we do it. Well, I didn't do it. I only took pictures when I thought there was something worth seeing, and that's why I didn't do it. So that's in the military debriefing that he gives. But then he says, and then he says, and there was only one anomaly the whole time, and that was when the D-15 or when the capsule had the electromagnetic failure. When the battery died, he says that was the only time. So
this is something that we hear a lot about with abductions, don't we? You've mentioned it already briefly, that the electromagnetic radiation that comes off these things kills the car batteries. And you've mentioned, we spent the whole evening talking about NASA, but one thing I will mention, and this is just something I want to ask you for my own interest. Have you heard of the Chris Bledsoe situation and NASA's interest in what he's got to say and what he has to say about astronauts who go up into space? He says that all of them have experiences with UAPs outside and they've all been sort of suppressed. But they get these particular. He says, and he's got a badge because of his experience. And this is what he says. This is not what I believe necessarily, but this is what he's relaying. Is that astronauts that go up into space, they get a specific badge that only them get. It's almost like an elite club members badge of having contact with the other side, or extraterrestrial. Chris Bledsoe's got one of these badges, and a particular higher up at NASA paid or pays particular attention to him. What do you make of the Chris Bledsoe story, what he's got to say about NASA, what he's got to say about the situation as a whole? Do you put any credence to anything he's got to say? I know we deal in facts traditionally, but what do you think?
So that's the UFO of God guy, right?
That's right, yeah. There's nuances to that, by the way. I'm not saying that.
There are nuances. We have to deal with generalities because we can't know everything. But I'm unfamiliar with the name Chris Bledsoe. Sounds familiar, but you say the UFO guy. I'm trying to.
Yeah, I haven't read the book. I don't know virtually anything about him, unfortunately. So
yeah, sure. It was just to throw in. I'm interested, so I thought while you're on, I'll ask you a question about it.
Well, the spiritual element of the phenomenon is like never to be understated, not possibly be understated.
Yes, exactly. And look at the astronauts who have come out. Look at Mitchell, okay, the Mitchell who went to the moon, okay, and come back and has created whole foundations upon psychic phenomena. Have you ever watched any of his videos or his statements? He never saw a UFO while he was up there. He's adamant about it. But the influence and the effect that it had on him is so dramatic that he has engaged himself in nothing but a process of bringing to light psychic phenomena with UFO implications that he had from space. He's an artist. He's done it. Have you looked at the guy who was at Story Musgrave? Was he the one who went outside to repair the the crazy telescope that didn't work, the Hubble telescope, when they had to put a lens on it? Have you ever looked at his space snake video on YouTube? You want to see a living creature? He has exposed, look at Story Musgrave, just go to YouTube and put up space snakes, Story Musgrave. He's recorded these space snakes twice, writhing alive in outer space out the window of the space shuttle. He goes on lecture circuits. He's a self-made, one of those amazing creatures he's a doctor, he's a physician doctor, he gets doctorates like I go to the bathroom, which is, well, the older I get, the less I do. He's an amazing guy, and all he talks about is, I've been up in space, I'm a trained biologist, space is filled with UFO, or filled with living creatures. That's done some wonderful studies on plasma. You look at the interesting papers on plasma life forms.
Bob Green thinks a lot about plasma.
Well, plasma is wonderful because and I've talked with Dr. Diane Powell about my theory for the longest while. It's been ever since I learned that over 95%, and Dr. Diane, she told me it was over 99% of the universe is plasma, okay? It seems arrogant to me that we would be looking for life forms on non-plasma, okay? 99% of the universe is plasma. The plasma and the large-scale structure of the universe, whenever you look at one of those cosmic microwave background radiation images, shows a structure that is almost exactly like the dedicated neuronal patterns of a brain. Lately, I'm just fascinated by quantum loop gravity. There's a fundamental error that we're finding in all of our Einsteinian standard models.
Einstein, we're finding out, like you said, we're finding a lot of things that contradict Einstein's verbatim.
But it doesn't mean that Einstein's findings aren't valid. It just means that understanding them,
special relativity,
the infinities that we come up against. Yeah, when you have to come up with things to solve the equation, and that's exactly what dark matter is. I can't go along with dark matter.
That's how Dirac. Modern quantum mechanics is done with special relativity, so it's really just general relativity.
Right, but it doesn't negate the mathematics and stuff behind it, other than when they fail to work and you have to. Well, and that's why I like quantum loop gravity. You go to quantum loop gravity. Here's the latest mystery. Okay, this just came out. We're looking at the deepest images we have of space. This came out in the last 2 weeks in quantum. It's happened. It was recognized much earlier, but an article came out and they were describing. They're called the big red dots at the earliest instance after the Big Bang. You have to forgive me for my generalities, but basically 546 million years after the Big Bang, there are these red dots, and the analysis of the red dots that they're showing up are that they are naked black holes. Okay. And according to all the standard theory that we have, there's no such thing as a naked black hole. Black holes form in one direction only. They form when stars collapse and coalesce, and they become larger and larger black holes. And of course, Avi Loeb is nice, and he says some of it.
Also where you get into like some ADS stuff where
and de Sitter space
and represents the same information as the bulk.
Right, like and the study of manifolds. That's what quantum loop gravity is basically.
The holographic universe that's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's again, it's all leading to the Einsteinian formulas do give us the exact answers to certain things, but then you have to throw in things like black or dark matter and dark energy in order to make them work. And we're talking very simple things that we should be able to understand, but because we're not using the right formula, we don't. Why is it that when you look at the spin of a galaxy?
I'm gonna have to get going here. Ed, Lee, would you like to stay on with Ed for a little bit, or simply wrap it up soon?
We're going to wrap it up, mate. I'd like to ask you one more question first. I'm just going to bring it back round to the topic now. We've mentioned peer review, and this is just a quick question, but I want to get your opinion on it anyway, just because I'm interested. Beatrice Villarreal's data has now been peer-reviewed. That coincides and correlates directly with Patrick Jackson's Sphere network. I interviewed him the other week about this. Him and Beatrice are going to be working together, pushing that forward, that data. What do you make of that now? Because this is 5 years previous to the Sputnik the Sputnik satellite that was thrown up into orbit. So what we've got are these transients coming in and out of the atmosphere, and then you couple that with Patrick Jackson's Sphere network, which suggests that there are layers of spheres circulating the planet in a network defending us from whatever items may or may not be coming in and out of the atmosphere. He suggests that these things are operated by ultra-terrestrials. He has video sort of evidence of capturing said being moving at a rate of knots, which is invisible to the naked eye. It's slipping in and out of... It's moving way quicker than his 50 frames per second camera could capture. But it's there. The data's there. It's now he's got that data. He's now pushing that data out. It matches with Beatrice Villarreal's data. What do you think of this, Ed? Have you been following this subject?
I worked with Beatrice. Okay, let me tell you what happened. The book that you have here, that I want everybody to get a copy of that book and go through it and look how you should do science. It's 656 pages. Beatrice was part, and I was able to get in contact with Beatrice and learn all about her wonderful studies when she was doing this 3 years ago. So I have a bunch of pages from Beatrice, okay, that weren't allowed to put in the book. If I'd put everything that my research has shown, the book would have been well over 900 pages, probably closer to 1,000. As it is, I got down to the bare bones minimum, and we're at 656 pages. Yeah, Beatrice, a wonderful, wonderful synopsis. And it's the same thing as all the principles of my book. This is before. That's what makes it so valid. Chris' findings are because she is talking about glass plates before we had a satellite in orbit, okay? These are astronomical plates from before. Although we can look now, and it's such a problem nowadays. Everybody brings out a video showing these wonderful things happening in the sky, and they are wonderful things. But it's the SpaceLink satellites being dropped off sequentially by Elon Musk and his wonderful efforts, okay? But when you go back to 1966 and the advent of the Gemini program and the formation of the CIA's National Photographic Center, and when Beatrice's wonderful frames, which, by the way, you watch the wow signal is one of the things that Avi Loeb brought out as one of his anomalies. Seth lives in the town where the wow signal was found, and I've found some amazing early glass frames from the early astronomical observatories over the Perkins Observatory in Delaware, Ohio. Again, these things are of super value because you cannot go to the standard catch-all excuse, which says, oh, it's a satellite. Oh, it's an unknown image. Oh, it's a Starlink satellite. Oh, it's something. No, her stuff is valid. It's valid because it's pre-space. And this stuff that I have is valid because it's pre-space. space. These are wonderful things. Yes, she's on the right track. Like I say, I was
I was
reading a report 2 years ago, and it was fascinating. It's brilliant insight. People have brilliant insights. It's a brilliant insight she has, and for someone else to come up and disprove it, which of course it's their job too. And that's the other thing. Hey, everybody's here to make money in the world. You can't get away from it. You need it to survive. But
what do you think of the Sphere Network, Ed? I mean, you've mentioned
the Sphere Network. I'm not sure the Sphere Network is her work. Her work is
it's Patrick Jackson's.
Oh, okay, Patrick. I'm not sure what his Sphere work is.
You are joking me, right there, Ed.
No. I'm not a UFO guy. I'm a historian.
All right, Ed, this is going to blow your mind. I'm telling you now. What you've got to do when you jump off this interview is go and look at the Sphere Network. Put Area 52. Patrick Jackson.
Area 52. I've heard you talking about the new Area 52. Have you seen the?
No, it's not a new. It's just watch it in. It'll introduce you to what the Sphere Network is. And then I interviewed Patrick Jackson a couple of weeks ago, which was the sequel to that. It was that was the introduction to what the Sphere Network is, and then we went into it a little bit more on my interview. But if you look at that, it'll blow your mind because it is Beatrice Villaro's data. It's just more in depth of what it actually is, rather than there's.
Okay, so it's an analysis of her photos, and of course I'll be interested in that.
So yeah, sort of. So she mentions transients coming in and out of the atmosphere. Now, what the Sphere Network has been measured and the data's collected, and he's got it, and you can see it again in the interview, is these spheres moving in and out of the atmosphere, some above the atmosphere, some in, some. There's about 4 layers of these things, and this is that he's collated, and he again has correlated it with Beatrice, and he works with Beatrice. He speaks to her, and they converse about this. But you should take a look at it because I think that'll blow your mind. I really do. If you don't know
there's
what
NASA
it is,
footage of these things. There's NASA footage of they're called sprites. Okay, there's all kinds of faster than any normal capability transient objects coming out of the atmosphere into space, and there's NASA footage of that. Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that. I'm not familiar with his spheres.
Well, you'll love this. Yeah,
but there's, like I say, the NASA footage that is out there is amazing. The studies being done on plasma, and how you can replicate life. There's a life form of plasma. You just take a plasma ball, and with a minuscule amount of regular matter into it, it seems to be able to replicate itself. You look at the experiment number 1 that you want to check out is the shuttle experiment, where they do the 20-mile long electromagnetic tether. They're trying to generate electricity directly from Earth's magnetic field. They're doing it by they unfurl 20 miles of cable to the end of a satellite, and because it's passing through the ionosphere, it collects the electricity, and what happens eventually is that it actually burns through that little 20-mile tether and floats into space. People photograph it from the Earth. You can see it photographed from Earth, but then they take those photographs and you can look at strange plasma creatures going in and out. And of course, then there's always the article, it's ice crystals, it's this, it's that. But unbelievable footage. Sounds very similar to what he knows. But yes, look at the 20-mile tether in the NASA Space Shuttle mission and look at that footage. And you want to see some strange lifelike looking things. Look at that. Story Musgrave, look at his Space Snakes video on YouTube. Look at his lectures. They sent him up. Story Musgrave has been on more space shuttle missions than any living human being. He repaired the telescope up there, the Hubble telescope. He's just been on more missions than anyone. He's a Renaissance man, and he just says they're there. And he says, I've recorded these Space Snakes more than once, because they try and say, well, this is just a housing from one of the wires that was coated in ice and broke off. The excuses go on and on and on. But eventually, and it's the point that we're getting here in society nowadays, where people start saying, well, wait a minute, it's always the same excuse. It's the same excuse. Validate it with some science, and yes, I will believe it. But just saying that this is just ice cubes and stuff like that, that's why I say we go for science. It's a scientific method. It's the only way that we can prove this.
I absolutely agree. I really do. I'll finish off by saying, we've spoke to Harvey Loeb before in the past a couple of weeks ago, and we've spoke about data, and we spoke about the suppression on the mainstream science and the reluctance to talk about this stuff from the mainstream scientists. Seems to be Harvey Loeb sort of leading the charge on this and shining a light on it from somewhere of education as far as the university is concerned, so somebody sticking the head above the parapet. What we've seen in recent years, since 2017 especially, probably in the last 8 years, is more information and more ground has been gained on this topic than possibly in the 80 years before that. And it's only going to happen quicker now, and I genuinely believe that disclosure at this stage is imminent. I think probably within the next year or two at most. And the guys, you know, you guys and Jon Stewart and many others and everybody else, in fact, influencers and everybody else alike, even the misinformation artists, we all have a part to play in this by shining a light on the topic, discussing it, and making sure that this subject, the UAP, the alien phenomena, that is mainstream. So I'll tip my hat to you guys for your tenacity and working hard on this and coming on and speaking to me as well. That's greatly appreciated. We're all in this together. We all have something to lend to it, and I'm sure that we can all help each other and get this disclosure out there quicker. So guys, from me over here in the UK, across the pond, thanks a lot for coming on this evening. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Sorry for the
Pleasure
technical
and mine.
ramblings, by the
Make
way.
sure all your kids out there get into the study of the science behind this. You're right, it's going to come about soon, but it's going to come about because people who are amateurs, the guys watching your program out there, have an important contribution to make, and the synchronicity of it is they don't even know it's them yet. God bless.
Well said. Well said. Guys, thanks for tuning in and watching. All of the links on all of the information and data that we spoke about in this episode, we'll put it in the description, and you can go to the website and follow it on, and you can dig into this.
That should give anybody a decent play, and a public Google Drive repo with some of our materials for anybody who wants to get into the
Seth,
details.
go to Seth. He handles all the technical data. There are tons of things to see. Tons. There are whole electromagnetic spectrum captured on that D15 experiment. It looks like space is exploding on there. It's captured on camera. 16,000 frames. Guys, get into this. It's you young people out there. Get into it. It's time that you pull the weight. I'm going to go ahead and die. Thanks, kids.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you very much, everybody. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Get over to TikTok and give me a follow on there. UAP Lee. I'm on there now. I'm active. I've caught up with the 21st century. So, guys, thank you very much, and take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
This is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page.
This is a Fox News alert. The Epstein files have been released.
Across the pond.
You're looking at now, sir. Everything that happens now is happening. Very serious. Now.